Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where in this beautiful world you are joining us from. Welcome to another Pate Group and Joy of SharePoint webinar. We are gathered together today to talk about attention management in Microsoft 365, and I want to give you a little sneak preview. We're going to talk about some non-Microsoft 365 stuff too. I think this last year has proved to all of us that we have let the digital world overtake us in quite a few ways. Richard and I actually talked this morning about how it's not just work, it's all these things that kind of all the things are pulling away at our attention. So we want to just talk through that with you today, give you some tips, some tricks, and some tools on how to manage your attention and to practice focus day by day. So if we have not met before, it is so good to get to know you. My name is Joy Apple, also known as Joy of SharePoint. I'm a Microsoft MVP and a modern workplace strategist at Pate Group, which basically means I get to talk with clients and customers day in and day out about all the great things in Microsoft 365 and help them strategize on how to get from where they are today and where they want to be inside of M365. And I'm joined always by Richard Calderon, my workplace twin at Pate Group. Richard, how is your day going?
It's going pretty well, Joy. I am occasionally able to focus on some things, but like anything else, sometimes I get distracted here and there. But happy to be on the webinar here with you all today. So good morning, good afternoon, etc. As Joy mentioned, my name is Richard Calderon, and I am also a modern workplace strategist, and just try to do all the things that Joy just mentioned here earlier. So again, thanks for jumping on the webinar with us today, and we hope that you'll find this information valuable and meaningful as well. As always, we've got a little bit of a poll that we just put out because we want to just kind of get a sense of who's in the room and some other questions that we think might be interesting for you. And let's kind of pull that up. Of course, it's prompting me to sign in again. So let's do that. So we've got the link in the Q&A to this poll, and if you'd like to go ahead and just start responding, we'd appreciate that. Just a couple of quick questions again. We always want to know who's who in the audience, but some of the other questions that we're asking here, and let's see about kind of getting some refreshes going. I'll come back here to the questions. Some of the things we're interested in knowing, because these are things we ask ourselves on a pretty regular basis here, are number one, what are some of the most common ways and distractions that can break your attention or your focus throughout the workday, and just kind of indicate any and all of those. Notifications tends to be kind of one of the big things, I think. In today's digital age, we've just got notifications coming at us left and right, especially if you are now heavily immersed in the use of Microsoft Teams, which I'm sure many of you are. There's just constant notifications kind of coming in from all over the place, phone calls and text messages from people as well too. If you work in the office, if coworkers are coming by and stopping by your desk. I remember a former colleague of mine from many, many years ago who, back before we had kind of some of the different ways of kind of letting people know that we're busy, actually, whenever he was really trying to focus, would literally tape a piece of paper to the back of his chair that said, "Desperately trying to get work done." And so if you were to ever kind of come around his cube corner, you would just see that right off the bat, to kind of his way of politely asking you to, please don't bother him at the moment. So we got some responses. Let's just kind of see what's coming in here at the moment. So in terms of folks in the room, IT pros and folks from the management level, again, thanks and welcome. Not surprising at all. So notifications, as we mentioned, kind of some of the big hitters there in terms of distractions, phone calls, text messages for sure. And then again, depending on whether you work in the office or not, people coming by your desk, and even just having those, we just can't avoid them, can't get away from those regularly scheduled or upcoming meetings that just happen to sometimes drop onto our calendar without us even knowing it. We just got invited to various meetings, or of course meetings that we're scheduling with others. So again, thanks for those responses. And then the third question was just kind of curious, on an average week, how much time would you typically have left over to be able to focus on your work? And this is outside of time that you might spend during meetings or reading and sending email, or obviously chatting and calling and so forth. And so it looks like one of you at least said that you've got, a good amount of your time, more than half, which is great. And then a couple of you that are indicating, less than 25% or so, and that's probably pretty typical. And at least so far, no one's saying that they have practically none, so that's good. If you are all users of Microsoft 365 and you pay attention to the My Analytics emails that you tend to get, or if you ever go out to your My Analytics dashboard, then the service also is good at being able to try to help you understand some of that around question number 3 in terms of how much time you get to focus. And so it'd be a good thing to be able to go out and look at that here on occasions. We might even bounce out to that to talk about some of that here a little bit today as well. So again, at any point in time, feel free to answer to the poll. We appreciate the engagement and the feedback. Let's head back to slides now.
Yeah, the dark side of collaboration. I mean, collaboration is wonderful. In fact, Richard, you and I probably focus on the most collaborative area of Microsoft 365. Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive. We help integrate Yammer, and we really try to get a holistic view of a company's information architecture so that their collaboration can be more productive, seamless, right? Everything just works well. But how many of us have said these things, or maybe we say them over and over again? It's our new mantra, right? It's like, I've got notifications everywhere, because the more we collaborate, that probably means it's more teams that we're in, right? So our expertise is being pulled into various areas inside of the organization. We actually have a link to a white paper we're going to share with you towards the end of the webinar, just about the overcommitted workforce that we kind of are in these days. Too many emails. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was doing a little bit of reading up, obviously the Harvard Business Review articles and some other info on the web, kind of in preparation for our conversation here today, Joy. And one of the things I stumbled across over and over again, which is a fairly pervasive term now, but it was kind of somewhat new to me. I haven't really thought or paid much attention to it, no pun intended, is this term of the attention economy, I guess. So today we live in this world where everybody is trying to vie for your attention, on the internet and in social media apps and advertisements and just coming at you all the time, nonstop, 24 hours a day. And so the articles are referring to, as it mentions here in this HBR article, where your attention, your time really is the scarce commodity now when it comes to being able to, what am I going to pay attention to? So everybody's vying for my attention, and I only have a limited amount of time. I can't create more than 24 hours a day. So to what am I actually going to spend time focusing my attention on? And so when you think about that, obviously in the context of work, yeah, it really hits home, because it's a very, very similar, if not identical, paradigms of everybody who's trying to collaborate together with you, whether it's inside your organization or customers or people that you work with outside your organization, are just constantly trying to get in touch with you because they're focused on getting their things done. And so one of the things they need to do is get some information from you or have a discussion with you. So all of a sudden you get that email or you get that Teams chat notification, or you get a text message and so forth. And it just, it can get to be to the point where you end up in this paralysis state where you've got too much stuff going on everywhere and you just can't even be productive individually, much less being someone who can be productive kind of collaboratively along with some team members. So it's a huge challenge going on today, maybe more so than ever.
I would agree with more so than ever. I wrote a blog post maybe a couple of months into quarantine when this wonderful COVID situation impacted us all. And not long after, I was doing some research just about being able to cope with all the digital stuff that was going on. They found out that in the first few months after quarantine, the average employee, let me retract that. Not the first few months, but from March to December, the average employee was in an additional 67 hours of meetings this year compared to last.
Wow.
That's like sitting in one continuous meeting for more than a week and a half.
Yeah.
That's insane. But Richard, of course, I've never been able to walk down a hall and talk to you, right?
Yeah.
That's not the reality of our work situation.
Yeah.
But when we are so removed from each other, it does create more of a digital overhead to get work done. So we've got a little animation we're going to run through with you all just to kind of step through what happens when we're trying to focus on something and we get that new meeting invitation or a chat or a call. So I'm sitting at my desk and I'm going to start working on a weekly report. Okay, so my brain is focused in and then boom, here comes John. So now I have to stop focusing and my brain now needs to process the distraction. When I go back to my weekly report, I have to start over from the beginning. Every time I get a distraction, my brain has to stop, focus on the distraction, then go back up to what I was working on before. Here it's the weekly report. Start at the beginning. It's like when you go back to watch WandaVision, and every time they give you a recap of what happened in the series before, your brain has to do a recap. So every time it starts over, and then we pick up where we were. Then the distraction comes in. Got to go look at that. Come back up. Start over from where I was before. Every time. So now we're making progress, and it's fantastic. And then, one more time, we get a distraction. Here's that Teams pop-up. Every time our brain has to go back to the beginning, come through, work with what we're doing, it lessens the impact of that focus. And it starts to build frustration. We borrowed this information from Microsoft. This is a Microsoft slide, and we actually showed it a few months ago when we were talking with Rishi about the modern architecture and focus and using the right tool at the right time. And it clicked in my mind then, this is why I feel like I have not only a short attention span, but I was irritated all the time.
Yeah.
Right? You finally get dug into something and it's like, what do they want now? Because every time that focus breaks and your brain has to go back through, it's a little irritating.
And I think it really just highlights the fact too that, oftentimes it's setting the right expectations with people with whom you work in order to be able to really kind of measure how successful you are or, how productive you can be, et cetera. So, if our project manager, for example, is asking us for some of this information about a project we're working on so that she can then compile a project weekly report to send over to the customer, her expectation might be, I kind of have a sense of what's going on in the project, so can you send me those updates? And she might think it's going to take you, less than an hour to kind of get that done. But in this example here, it really, really highlights the fact that depending on whether or not you have the ability to focus on getting that information in the weekly report done, it could certainly take you several hours to get that done, and then you've kind of got to go and reset that expectation with the project manager. And then if that becomes an ongoing thing, then now suddenly it's like, well, does it really take you 2 to 3 hours each time to do this weekly report? Or is it just because you're not able to do it efficiently because you can't focus? And so, great example, I think, to just identify the fact that distractions, breaking our attention can certainly just impede your productivity on things that you might expect you should take you less time.
And I just feel free to shout out in chat if you can relate. It just makes you grumpy. It makes me grumpy. Maybe I should speak for anybody else. So let's talk about some ways we can strengthen our attention and maybe even improve our attitude while we're at it. Because once you're able to sit down and focus into work and have that nice uninterrupted period of time, and you just feel like you're more in control of your day. I know probably about June-ish, I took a screenshot of my calendar and I used it as a slide. I've used it a few times in slides because I'd gotten to where I was blocking 15, sometimes 30 minutes on my calendar, and I literally labeled it sanity break because I was going from meeting to meeting to training to meeting to meeting to training. It's like I really didn't know where I was going to be until Outlook told me. Right? So just having those moments to breathe, allocating focus time on your calendar, not putting community stuff in Teams. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. I'm not saying don't use Teams. You're not going to hear me say that.
Yeah.
Turning off distractions through notification management. Resisting, this is hard, resisting the idea of multitasking during meetings, even though we really want to.
Yep, guilty.
So guilty. And you know people are doing it because you say their name and you ask them a question and they go, I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. Could you repeat that question?
Yeah.
You did not break up. You weren't paying attention.
Or they fall on their sword and just simply stop. I was not paying attention. I was multitasking. So
sorry, I was sending an email to somebody, not you.
Right.
And then don't try to remember everything. I'm guilty of this. I am so guilty of this. Yes. Don't try to remember everything. We have tools that can help us. So let's see.
Better ways, yeah.
Lots of good tools. Focus time. Focus time is so important. I would say we do a good job at Pate Group at booking focus time, letting Cortana book focus time. One thing we're not so good at is not sending a message when we see they're focusing. Mm-hmm. So there's 2 reasons for that. I know I see all 3 video feeds and we're all looking a little guilty.
Yeah.
Sometimes Teams doesn't flip over and show an accurate status until you've actually sent a message, and then it wakes up and it refreshes. And it's like, oh shoot, I'm so sorry you're focusing. Personally, I'm afraid I'll forget to send the message. So I do it anyway and trust that you're not going to see that because you're on Do Not Disturb. I don't have my cell phone handy. Your cell phone will not respect the Do Not Disturb you set on your desktop. Mm-hmm. So be mindful of that.
Yeah.
If you don't have Cortana enabled, or if your company isn't set up to do that focus time block, just go do it. Be proactive. It is not a sign of weakness. It is not saying, hey, I can't handle my workload, so I'm blocking people off. This is actually enabling yourself to get stuff done. It's important. So go ahead, block off that time. I found Cortana wants to do mine in 2-hour blocks, and a lot of times I'll actually go break that up into 2 1-hour blocks. Just works a little bit better for me. Yeah. Do it. Richard, I feel like I stepped on your toes there.
No. I was just going to say that. Yeah. I think that's a default setting, and we can show that here in a minute. You can actually set that for yourself in My Analytics as to whether you want it to be defaulting to 2-hour blocks, which is the default in this case, or now you can change it to 1-hour blocks, or I think 4-hour blocks, even if whatever that is, a 4-hour block of free time.
That's crazy talk.
That's crazy talk.
Okay, if you don't have it, go book it yourself, and do make sure to put your status on Do Not Disturb. So, Richard, if you want to zoom in on the My Analytics screenshot I've got there, it's actually pretty cool. She will go in there, and I get Cortana's, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Cortana will go in there and block out time for you. If you go into My Analytics, you actually pay attention to those emails. It'll show you, hey, you've booked it, or uh-oh, you've got a couple of days here where you haven't. It'll give you a rundown on how much time do you have in a week to focus. I'll confess, I don't feel like I have that much time, but Cortana's telling me I've got 54% available. Mm-hmm. It'll tell you your quiet days, your active collaborators. I think that's really interesting, kind of just to see what's going on around you and who you're engaging with the most. Super handy little tool. Yes. Now, Cortana will also volunteer to go and block just some breaks for you, 15-minute breaks here and there throughout the week. Block out a special time to catch up on emails. So that tells me something that I really hadn't internalized until recently. Your focus time is not your email catch-up time.
Yeah, I agree. I hadn't really thought about it that way too, quite honestly, until Microsoft made that update into My Analytics. And they made it more granular to where you could book, catch-up time and learning time and things like that. And I thought the exact same thing that you did. I said, well, normally I would just kind of lump that all together into some of these focus blocks if, whenever I had them. But to treat them separately from getting your work done is an important distinction, I think.
Mm-hmm. Though I will say, if responding to emails is getting your work done, do what you need to do, right?
Yeah.
It is your focus time. If that's
Right.
healing for you and that needs to be done,
Yeah.
go do it. I would also recommend looking at your focus assist if you've got Windows 10. Being able to block out when your PC is sending you notifications, email pop-ups, things like that. Fantastic tool. And one of my favorites is the fact that inside of Teams, you can set a status message.
Mhm.
It's like Teams' version of out of office, but
Yeah.
way more flexible. So you can go click on your picture or your initials inside of Teams. And then, Richard, if you want to zoom in, I've got a little screenshot there of where you can see the set status message block. So if I'm like doing deployment planning sessions, kind of to help my clients strategize on how to roll out Microsoft 365, I'll put it in there. I'm in DPS these days through these days. So when someone's messaging you, it'll show up right above the little block where they type, and you can set when to clear that. So if I need it just for a day, I just set it to clear at the end of the day. If I want to put a custom time frame there, I can absolutely do that. I can remind people you're on vacation. Out of office will show up, but it's nice just to remind, hey, I'm not answering your question. I'm on the beach. That's the dream, right?
Exactly. But yeah, I agree. I do the same thing. Super useful tool. I'm anxious for when Microsoft can, get the whole single identity across tenants kind of thing set up, because that is one of the ones that's a real drag when I know I'm going to be away, because of vacation or something like that. And you'd have to go into customer tenants or the other tenants to which you're a guest, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You would have to set the same status message there. So while I think that's super useful, yeah, that's one of the things I'm looking forward to, is being able to do that in just one place and let it kind of propagate across all my identities. Okay.
This is a fun one. You want to lead?
I think you have a better, nicer way of saying it than I do.
Oh, okay. I'll play. Okay, I'm the good cop. That's right. I'm good cop. Okay. Don't build communities in Teams areas. All right. And if you joined our Maca webinar we did a few months ago, I actually did say a verbal apology to Yammer. And later that day, I tweeted a little more public apology to Yammer, right? Because it's come home. It's come full circle. We're building out a true collaboration architecture these days, right? In Teams, we're there to work. Teams is for teamwork. So if I get a notification from Teams, in my mind, if I'm using our collaboration architecture correctly, that notification is going to have more weight on it than from Yammer, because in Teams, we're working on projects, we're working on policies, procedures, departmental initiatives, right? Collaborative effort for a corporate result. I'm working here. But Yammer is for our community interaction. We have a new addition to the team, Kat, and she has built for us a social squad inside of Yammer. And, just since you're here, I'll let you in on it before anybody else knows. I'm going to be doing a webinar with Kat real soon, I'm excited.
Yeah, it's great.
All about communities inside of Yammer. But that's for I want to know, not I need to know. At Pate Group, we have currently a fun room. It's a channel in Teams, our all company team. And that's where we had been going. We'd kind of started out going, well, we're small. We're a tech company, do as we say, not as we do. We would do our fun stuff in the fun room. But man, you get that Teams notification, you've got to go see what it is. You've got to. But Yammer is there for when you're ready. So we're actually in the process of transitioning from our fun room to our social squad for want to know, not need to know. Your areas of learning, Yammer is a phenomenal place for that. So just putting a dividing line there. Anybody else, when the Teams commercials come on TV, feel like Pavlov's dog, right? You hear the team chime and you're at a restaurant or you're minding your own business in the kitchen and somebody's got the TV on and you're like, oh, is that me? And you're looking for your phone to check Teams real quick. No, it's the TV, right? We're conditioned to think If I get a notification from Teams, I need to respond quickly, immediately. So if we break off the social fun stuff to Yammer, it will ease that urgent notification overload.
Yeah, I agree. And again, this is something that, you know, Joy and I and others haven't necessarily thought in depth about, and then are thinking more about now that we're using Yammer more regularly, even ourselves. But it does really make sense when you think about it. You know, if you at the kind of the Uber level, think about segmenting the usage of teamwork related workspaces where you're trying to accomplish a goal and you've got other people that you have to kind of, you know, interdependent tasks that are going on and so forth. That's what Teams is for. And then obviously for kind of broader communication and knowledge sharing, or, you know, areas of interest, that's what Yammer is for. And then that whole notifications thing, which kind of bleeds into our next tip here, that's where you can really take advantage of tweaking that, right? Because even if you just sort of generally said, well, I'm gonna suppress all Yammer notifications then so I can stay focused, you know, that might not necessarily be the right thing either, right? Because maybe there are some Yammer communities that are for company-wide announcements posted from executives, and you want to get notified of those because maybe there's some important stuff happening, you know, first thing in the morning on some day. So you can tweak those even at a community level in a way that makes sense for you. But really it starts with, you know, thinking about it architecturally as not really putting those communities in Teams, but using it what it's designed for, which is for Yammer.
Speaking of notifications.
Yeah. This was the number one, at least I think, from our poll. Most people saying this is where the distractions come, notifications.
Yep. So let's talk about notification management. So we want to manage our notifications so they don't manage us. Yeah, that's the goal. So if you're in Teams and you click on your face, your profile picture, or your initials, however you've got that set up, and you go to settings. Under settings is notifications. And in that area, there's all kinds of stuff that you can kind of tweak to set up the notifications so they're not driving you bonkers. Because if you leave it all on default, it's going to drive you bonkers. All activity, it's like all chat, all meetings, all people. Or you can customize that. You can set up how often you want to get an email from Teams. So if you miss something inside of Teams, you get that, hey, your team's doing stuff, you need to know about it. Personally, I have mine set for 1 hour. I actually had to talk someone down out of a tree once because they thought it should be set at immediate. Well, if I don't see it Teams, I want to know as soon as possible. It's like, girl, that means Teams is going to be emailing you potentially 20, 30, 50 times.
All the time, yeah.
Don't do it, right? Don't drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
And let's talk for just a minute. Richard and I talked about this yesterday. If you get in there and you click custom, so that's the screenshot that's on the right-hand side of the screen. That's where you get very granular of, okay, if someone mentions me, do I want that banner, that pop-up, and in my activity feed, or just the activity feed? That's the only notification you can't turn off. You cannot remove the notification if someone specifically types in that @ symbol and your name, because they're coming to you for help. They're asking you a question or they're needing something from you. Other than that, you can either turn off notifications or just have them go to your feed. So you can go and just kind of do the rundown as you have time for what you maybe need to go back to or haven't been able to address since the last time you were in Teams. Teams also has the ability for you to hide channels within a team or a whole team. And that's a big deal. If you've not really played with that and you're in multiple teams, I think most of us are probably in many multiple teams.
Yeah.
If there's a particular team, you don't really do anything in there much, but if someone calls your name, you'll go see what's up, hide it. Right? Get it out of your way, mute all those notifications that aren't really impactful for you. You don't need to be aware of what's going on, and you just go check on it later when you have free time, just to make sure you're up to date. Same with channels. If your department has one big all department team and then maybe a channel for every group inside the team, just so you can chat and stay aware of stuff. And you really don't care what team B is doing most of the time, hide it. It mutes those notifications. If someone mentions you, you'll get it. But this way, we're only getting those pings from the things that we really care about and need to know about. That can also reduce our kind of reflex desire to create private channels. I think a lot of times people want to create a private channel just so the folks that aren't in them won't get harassed with a lot of notifications they don't want. That's what the show hide is for.
So that's a great tip. Yeah. So, while you can in Teams go in and very specifically set all these different notification options depending on what makes sense for you, and we certainly encourage you to do that, is go in and kind of tweak these and see what makes sense. Kind of a simpler method in all one fell swoop is for teams, again, that you're not really necessarily actively engaged in, or even for channels in a team that aren't necessarily ones that are as important to you as others. Doing that hide option, as Joy mentioned, just automatically suppresses notifications when you hide them. So it's a really quick way, rather than coming in and having to set all these different options, of being able to focus your attention. Just get those notifications out of the way.
More and more, I have stuff that for me isn't really a priority. Just go to my feed, and then I'll go read through my feed a few times throughout the week just to see what have I missed, what's going on, what are people talking about. And if the team is mentioned or a channel is mentioned and you're in there, you're going to see a notification. It's not going to pass you by unless you just choose to never go look for it. So just be aware.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. The banner pop out, which is in the lower right corner of Windows, or I think it's in the top right corner for a Mac, for example. That's the thing by far that just tends to distract me the most whenever I'm working. I've got multiple monitors set up, but it doesn't really matter. Wherever that little banner pops out, it tends to break my focus and attention. So yeah, setting it to where in Teams you're really getting notified potentially only in your feed, I think that's a great tip.
It works for me, and I will say it's so easy to reply in that banner, right? That's a wonderful feature that I can just type that quick reply, right? But now I've broken my attention, and I could always just go type that reply in half an hour. It's probably not earth-shattering if I wait to respond. And I'm going to get the email notification in an hour if it totally passes by. So it's going to be okay.
Exactly. So one quick thing before jumping on to the next slide, I did want to point out something, if you've not seen this before, from your ability to set these notification settings. So again, Joy mentioned that from Teams, for example, there's a couple of ways that you can actually go and set focus time for My Analytics and so on and so forth. You could use the new Viva Insights app, for that matter. If you didn't know that that's something you can go and download or install rather into Teams, we encourage you to go and search for that app. You're going to be searching for Insights. Last time I searched for Viva and I didn't quite find what I was looking for, but I searched for Insights and I found quickly what I was looking for. So you have the ability to be able to kind of follow up with people with whom you collaborate from this tab, as well as do the focus time, which is what you get from My Analytics here as well too. This is going to continue to evolve over time with more and more capabilities, so kind of stay tuned on the My Analytics side. But on the Viva Insight side. But in terms of My Analytics, if you never go to this dashboard, it is something that I encourage you to do. And this is from a demo here, which is why it's showing I have 86% availability. That's not actually accurate from my real user account. But again, Waffle Iron or however app launcher that you tend to get to My Analytics is the way that you would get here. But the thing that I was going to point out that I think is useful just to know is you can go in here now and you can actually set in your time to focus this kind of personalized focus plan. And it's in this personalized focus plan where you have the ability to set, for example, how much time would you like to schedule every day when you're setting focus time. So the default is 2 hours and that is recommended. But in Joy's case or others, maybe you might want to bring it back down to an hour. Or again, while this might seem unrealistic for some, you could shoot for having focus time block as 4 hours a day. But you have that option. you have the option to kind of choose when might you choose to do focus time. So, is it more common to look for morning hour blocks or afternoon hour blocks? Just kind of depends on what's up to you. You can see that it's kind of popular for people to do that in the morning hours. And then lastly, this is the one related to notifications. So specific to Teams, you can by default have when you are set to focus time, which is basically just kind of a variant of do not disturb. You can have it set to where it will mute all notifications coming from Teams, with exception of your priority notifications that come from priority people, so your manager or whoever that may be. Or you can obviously set it to allow if you wanted to change it that way. So just something that you can do. Yeah, you can set that up in My Analytics, set that up in the plan configuration to be able to change those notifications.
So I'm seeing the word focus. I didn't think to put this on a slide. Does anyone ever attempt to try to do a Focus Friday where they just do not allow meetings?
Sounds wonderful.
Stacy raised her hand. It does, right? I know Stephanie and Mark at Pate Group have both been working. I think Tuesday is their day to say, we're going to focus on output, right? Getting things accomplished on Tuesdays. If it's important, obviously they're going to be there. But other than that, they try really hard to schedule meetings around it. Of course, they're the bosses, right? So they can pretty much manage their schedule however they want to.
Yeah, but I set up my week so I have most of my meetings in the beginning of the week, and then I have less meetings towards like on Thursdays and Fridays, so I can make sure that I've gotten all the things that need to be accomplished that week. But I'm still available if something comes up.
Yeah.
Smart. I'm starting to work towards that model. Sometimes our project managers kind of go, wait, when am I supposed to let clients get to you if I can't book you on this desk? Well, okay, talk to me. But it's a concept that I'm eager to explore.
Sure.
Oh gosh, I just feel like a hypocrite talking through this. But let's be real. Let's be real. They have debunked it. There's no such thing as multitasking. Right? It's not efficient. You're probably doing sort of 2 or 3 or 5 things at the same time, but you're doing 0 of them well. So we want to try to strengthen our focus and building our attention span back up to how it was when we were in college by practicing, right? Be present in the meeting, even if it's boring, even if it should have been an email. Just try, right? We're gonna practice being present. And it's funny, if you're only half listening to a meeting and somebody comes back to you the next day to ask you, do you panic a little and go, no, I think it went well. I think it was really good. And inside you're going, I have no idea. I was catching up on my email, right? So build confidence and feel like you're more in control by being more present in those meetings. How do we do that? Turn off notifications. Close email. I have been known, if I know I'm probably not going to be able to focus if I get an email, I'll close down the tab that I keep my email open in. You can go to Do Not Disturb. Turn off your PC notifications by turning on your Focus Assist. I actually have been known to leave my cell phone in another room so I won't be tempted just to reach, what just came in from Instagram, right? Just put it somewhere else. What are your tricks for trying to stay focused, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, I can't claim to do any and all of those tricks that you mentioned. I'll try when possible, but one thing that I do occasionally, and it's kind of counterintuitive, is the fact that we work from our home offices, and I have the fortunate luxury of having a couple of different monitors that I have in my setup. I know that not everyone does, but what I think is the benefit of having these multiple monitors, I've got all this kind of screen real estate, and I can move a window here and move a window there. But when it comes to being in a meeting, having those multiple monitors really is just more of that temptation, again, to multitask, because I don't necessarily need to be watching the video or the presentation that's on the screen, because I can look over at my other monitor. So what I will do occasionally, whenever this is just sort of makes sense, is if I know I've got a meeting come up and I've really got to focus on that, is I'll unplug from my kind of multi-monitor hub experience and just I've got a Surface device, And so I'll take my Surface device and I'll go sit in some other area, or I'll just, unplug it and sit right here at my desk, because now this little, reasonably sized monitor display on my Surface is the only thing that I have to be able to focus on and to pay attention to. And so that can sometimes also help me be able to focus on a meeting and avoid that whole, trap that you get in of wanting to go look at something else. And I'll admit, even doing that though, if I have my phone sitting next to me, then when a notification comes in, I'll peek at my phone while I'm in a meeting. So it's definitely hard.
You try to get, you get a little clever. You try to hold it up here, so it kind of doesn't look like you're because you don't want to do this. They know.
These are all, the things we're talking about here today, and we can turn the mirrors around to ourselves just as much in talking about this. These are all habits and behaviors that we have to practice to be able to develop. They're not something that you can just kind of hear us talk about in a webinar and go, oh, I heard Joy and Richard talk about this and now I'm going to do that, and suddenly boom, it just is better for you. It's going to take practice. It's going to take you going in and doing some things on a regular basis, setting those focus time hours, changing notifications settings here and there depending on the need. And in this case, obviously trying to come up with any and all methods around avoiding that multitasking in meetings. But I will say one thing though, which I think is interesting around the analytics story at Microsoft, when you talk about the kind of broader workplace analytics service that can kind of understand what's happening across the organization, looking at what's happening in multitasking in meetings is actually one of those metrics, or one of those kind of aspects that you can analyze, because they can tell. They're in the service, they can see Joy and Richard they've got a meeting scheduled on their calendar, and they can even see that Joy and Richard attended the meeting because you signed on to the Teams meeting. And they can also tell that Joy and Richard are now reading email or sending email or working on a document or things like that during the meeting. So if they can conclude, that is to say, if the service can conclude in workplace analytics that multitasking is regularly occurring in sort of like a weekly recurring meeting, then maybe that meeting isn't quite as meaningful as you might think it would be. It's not just necessarily that people are, purposefully multitasking, but maybe that meeting isn't quite as important as the organizer thought it would be. So it's good insights, right, to be able to also gain if you're noticing there's lots of multitasking happening during the meeting. So just some additional info for you if you guys are into learning more about workplace analytics, let us know.
Your brain is not a task tracking app. I know my brain is not a task tracking app. It just is not. But the good news is there is an app for that. Use To Do, or I'm going to try to hold this up. I probably don't need to have all that. Oh, it's fine. I have my little, will it do it?
And no. Your background, but yeah, we get the gist. It's a little.
There it is.
Pad of paper.
This is my productivity for just when I need to doodle. Sometimes I just need to write it down. Yeah. But that's better than relying on my brain to remember everything. I just can't. Yeah. To Do's great. I was actually complaining to Richard though that I need To Do to actually be what wakes me up in the morning. I need it to auto start and be in front of my face for morning, noon, nighttime, because otherwise I won't remember to go open it up. But Richard was telling me, and I really didn't know this until we were talking about it the other day, that by just relying on your memory to keep track of everything puts more stress on your brain and reduces the likelihood that you'll remember.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because there is, I think it's different for every person, but there is sort of like, if you think about your memory and your short-term memory as this little bucket or maybe like a coffee cup size with what you can recall and remember to track what's going on, there's a certain point that, 3, 4, 5 different things you've got in your head that now if you add the 6th one or the 7th one, then the first 1 or 2 that you were trying to remember, those are going to kind of fall out of the cup now, right? So as you're adding more in, now you're losing others. And it's just, it's the kind of typical situation of like, I dropped the ball on that because I just forgot about it or didn't remember it. So yeah, again, just like everything else, it's a behavioral, habitual kind of thing to get into the practice of whatever your task tracking method of choice is, a notepad, sticky notes, OneNote, Microsoft To Do, you name it, as long as you're consistent and you have kind of that habit that you built of being able to say, the moment I've got something in my head that I know I need to do, rather than trying to say it over and over and over again so you don't forget it, which again is just putting more stress on your brain. Just get in the habit of, pull your phone out of your pocket or pull that notepad out off from your desk and just jot it down. And then it's there. At least it's there. And somebody else, or something else rather, is now kind of keeping track of that on your behalf. And you can kind of free up those brain cells to focus on other things at that point. So yeah, it's an important one to try to build this muscle, build this habit for it.
And now time for our soft and cuddly slide. Take a few minutes a day, if I dare you, right? And it sounds ridiculous. I know it does. I kind of have this eye roll reaction to this when we were first starting to dig into it back a few months ago, but it's amazing what remembering how to focus and pay attention can do for you. Who remembers being able to go to a library in high school or college and literally sit down and do dedicated research, focus on it, and knock that term paper out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now I trying to write a blog is torture. Right? I could have knocked that out in an hour back in the day because we've lost the skills to focus. We have untrained our brain. But literally just taking a few minutes a day to walk your dog, go for a walk, sit in a chair and look out a window and appreciate the fact that the leaves are actually starting to come out on the trees, and I'm super excited about that. And just practice paying attention to something without distractions. I asked Richard this morning, we were doing our prep before the webinar. It's like, when was the last time you just took a car ride and were bored? Someone else was driving, so you didn't play a game or go through Instagram, you just looked out the window.
Can't recall. It's been a while, for sure.
Been a while.
Yeah.
So we started talking about this mental stillness app. Richard, you downloaded it yesterday, right?
Yeah, this is off of the modern collaboration architecture part of the adoption.microsoft.com website. And lots of great information there related to what we're talking about today. And one of the things is there's a link here to this app, this mental stillness app. And yeah, I again, can't say that I had really thought about trying to use something like an app or a tool to practice effectively kind of this meditation, if you will, but it's the ability to just try to quiet your mind for some defined duration. And in my case, I just went in and did like the very basic, which is like literally 2 minutes. And if you haven't tried this, I would encourage you to try it. It's really pretty neat, quite honestly. But, the person on the app is basically just kind of talking you through, kind of like maybe sort of like a gym coach or a yoga instructor would do, but they've got a really calm, soothing voice, and they're just asking you to focus on your breathing and focus on, saying a few words kind of over and over to yourself in this 2 minute time frame. And I gotta say, it was hard. Because maybe it was the time of day I was doing it. Yeah, 2 minutes. It might have been the time of day that I was trying to do this, and I don't remember if it was in the morning or the afternoon, but it was definitely during the workday. And my mind is racing, right? There's just stuff going on in my head, and most of it's work related. Some of it might be kind of stuff I've got to do after work, or things I didn't get done from last week and things like that. But to just kind of focus on yourself, focus on trying to quiet your mind, and being okay with that time. That's the other part that I think is hard, is to sort of give yourself the grace to say it's okay to spend 2 minutes in this case, or longer, really, ideally, but just a few minutes of time to focus on yourself, quiet your mind, give your mind a break. And I'm gonna try to commit to myself to practice doing that and use this app, for a little while and see. The hope is, at least from the things that I've read, it gives you more focus and it allows you to be, more in the moment in meetings and interactions with people, and hopefully even like your relationships with your family and friends. And so I think maybe there's a whole lot of benefits to doing something like this, well above and beyond just what we're talking about here today.
And this is the same app that's going to be tied into the well-being part of Microsoft Viva when they roll out. Is it the well-being? Am I using the right word? Wellness, well-being?
Yeah. When you're talking about the, of course, I'm drawing a blank now here.
Or is it Insights?
I mean that. Yes, it's part of Insights.
It's part of Insights.
The well-being and productivity as part of Viva Insights. Yeah.
Yep. And there's going to be that virtual commute thing that's going to be coming out. I'm super excited about that to help us start our days and end our days when we're always working from the same place that we live. So good stuff is coming out. I'll confess, I've had that app downloaded for months and I still haven't used it, but I'm going to, if Richard can do it, I can do it. So I'm going to go try 2 minutes. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being part of today's webinar. Thank you for being here and taking time out of your day, hopefully to pay attention and focus on some of the content we were able to share with you. I hope you'll join us again when we do our next webinar. If you haven't connected with Richard or myself on social media, we sure hope you will. I've got our Twitter handles, and those QR codes will take you to our LinkedIn profiles. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks for joining. Have a great week.
Bye.